Hello bakers! Today I thought I'd try Oat and Pecan Brittle cookies by Claire Saffitz. I actually saw her make it on her YouTube channel, which I will link down below. They look incredible. There are a few stages and I've never made a brittle before, and I don't tend to rest my cookie dough, but I'll do it this time. So yeah, let's see how it goes. So first up I'm going to do the pecan brittle, or as they say, pecan, but you know, British here. So you need pecans, sugar, unsalted butter, baking soda. They use kosher salt, which I don't have, so I'm going to use a fine sea salt and hope that works. And then for the actual cookies, it's unsalted butter, flour, salt, baking soda, oats, dark brown sugar, granulated sugar. I'm actually just going to use caster sugar, 2 large eggs, which I think for the UK, I think are roughly around medium eggs, and a tablespoon of vanilla extract. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So first up we've got our pecans, and I'm going to roughly chop them and then toast them in the oven. I think it was about 170 for about 8 to 10 minutes. So until they smell like nice and toasty and nutty. Sorry if I sound like a chronic smoker at the moment. The hay fever is real. The pollen is awful in London at the moment, so sorry about that. So I've got the baking sheet, and then I'm going to put on the pecans and they'll go in the oven. So first up we make the brittle, and I ended up doing these over about 3 days, I think, so the lighting's going to change a bit, but I kind of don't like doing massive baking things all in one go, so I split it up. So, and then next up I am making the, I guess the brittle part, or the pecan brittle, which I think it's a bit like a toffee. So I'm adding in my sugar and butter and a couple of tablespoons of water into a saucepan, and then that will go over like a medium-low heat, and kind of almost making, yeah, a bit like a caramel, I guess, which I have mixed success with. Always like panics me that I'm going to crystallize it or burn it or whatever. So I was like a hawk with this, leaning over, watching intently, but it went completely fine, and there was no like temperature measuring or anything like that. I didn't have to use a thermometer. Temperature measuring, yeah, that's a good way to say I didn't need to use a thermometer. So I kind of melted them together until it was like, if you see, kind of golden and bubbling, and then you add your toasted pecans. You mix it very quickly because it does, you can see it kind of starting to stiffen up a bit, and then once they're evenly coated, you add the baking soda and some salt, and it was meant to foam, but mine didn't, but it tasted really good and it went really well. So I don't know if maybe my baking soda was old, probably not, I bake a lot, but maybe it foamed a tiny bit and I just didn't notice. I don't know if you can see there's a bit of a crust of sugar in the pan because I didn't want to stir it, but it didn't seem to affect the brittle. It wasn't crystallized, it was smooth and delicious, and possibly my favourite thing out of this entire cookie. I think if you only make this part, you're onto a winner. It was the most addictive thing I think I've ever had. Yeah, and then I was on to the next day, hence the kind of light change. And next up we're browning butter, which I haven't done for a very long time. I always feel like it's going to be really stressful, but it really wasn't. So I'm taking half the amount of butter needed for the cookies, and then melting it over, I think it was about a medium-low heat, until it kind of starts to brown. And in the meantime I put the rest of the butter into the mixing bowl, because once the brown butter is ready, you add it to this bowl. So as you can see, it foamed up though, so I had trouble seeing it, but yeah, you can see there's lots of like brown bits, and sorry, there's a lot of saucepan, close up of a saucepan there, but you can see this kind of golden dark brown, and then you add that to the butter that was in the mixing bowl. I'm very good at getting out every last bit. I kind of feel like if they tell you, you know, it should be 130 grams of butter, you should get it all in there. So I mixed that up a bit until it was all incorporated, and we've got a tree outside our window, in case you're wondering why it's like techno dance lights in the background. It was just the sunlight coming through the tree. So I mixed that together and actually left that until the next day, and here I am prepping up the cookie dough for the next day. So that was adding the flour into a food processor. Unfortunately, you do need a food processor because you also can be blitzing oats and part of the pecan brittle. But it's some very long flour additions going on there. So the flour, the salt, and the baking soda. I will say I found the salt worked great. I don't know what obviously the difference would be with kosher salt, but I didn't feel like it was too salty or under-seasoned either. So I've blitzed the flour, salt and baking soda together just to combine it, and then I'm adding, I think it was about half of the oats and also half of the pecan brittle, which I needed to chop up. Obviously missing a few bits because I had to try it, and then it was so good I kept eating it. And I do actually think my boyfriend's hand might find his way into shop because he thought it was incredible too. So sorry about that, but you know, perks of living with a baker. There he is. It was really easy to chop, and obviously it's very brittle, hence the name. And so yeah, you chopped it into kind of pea-sized bits, and then half go into the food processor to make almost like a candy flour, and then half go into the actual cooking mixture to make chunks. I would absolutely recommend watching Claire Saffitz's video of her making these, because obviously that's her recipe and everything, but I thought in case you want to see a normal baker give it a go and how it looks, then you can watch this one. Watch a normal person make it. So yeah, then we have the butter, which had been resting overnight with that nice little butter drip down the edge. So that's the browned butter and the normal butter from yesterday. Obviously you don't have to leave stuff overnight, I just like making my life easier. So next up I added the sugar. So I used caster sugar and also dark brown sugar. I've got runaway eggs there. And then they get mixed in the stand mixer on about a medium speed until they're kind of light and smooth, but not fluffy. I don't think it's meant to be particularly airy like a cake. It's meant to be a bit more dense and chewy. Yes, I picked out sugar and put it back in the bag. Don't judge me, please. So you can see it's a very, very light caramel colour, but not necessarily particularly fluffy. And then I add the eggs and I add the vanilla. I'm very ashamed to say that my vanilla was just the most crappy basic vanilla. I mean, it's still vanilla extract, it wasn't essence, but it wasn't like the super duper high quality stuff. And I've got a teaspoon measure here, so I'm doing 3 of them to make up a tablespoon. Yeah, I've got like a little jar of vanilla extract brewing, but it's not ready to use yet. But again, they tasted fine, so if you've only got basic vanilla, use it. It works a charm, trust me. So then that's all been mixed up in the stand mixer again until it's kind of a bit satiny. I think it was about a minute, and then I kind of scraped down the sides of the bowl and then added the kind of flour mixture, getting all those bits out, and then I again put it back to the stand mixer, and you beat it on like low and just until it's combined. And then the remaining bits of the brittle and the remaining oats as well, which I then mixed again, just on low speed. I mean, even though it's quite a long recipe, it's also quite simple, and especially if you divide it up, if you do the brittle, if you do the brown butter, then it's just assembly job in the end. So, also sorry if you can hear my computer fan is working overtime, so sorry if you've got that as a background noise. And then once it was all mixed together, I just used a spatula to make sure there was no kind of flour pockets or anything. Folded it all up. She recommended doing 2-ounce portions, so I got my scale out and tried to figure it pretty much accurately, hence picking bits off. But my battery went on my scale, so by the end I was like, you know what, this is good enough. It's pretty much my baking motto, is always good enough, and to be honest, it usually is. Baking's meant to be about fun and eating lots of sugar and butter. And then I chilled them overnight. I think I did about 24 hours in the end, and wrapped them all up nicely and tried to find a space in the fridge, which there never really is there? It was, so this is the next day, and it was 6 dough balls, is that right? To a sheet, and as you can see, they came out great. They spread really well. That's me headbutting the camera stand there, and they were really, really good. I would highly recommend them. We've eaten most of them, and yeah, I'd really recommend them. I hope you enjoyed watching me do it, and please watch Claire Saffitz's official way of doing it and explanations. But anyway, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you next week.